Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to race number 14 of Season 3 of the Dark Horse IndyCar Series presented by HyperX, as tonight, Homestead Miami Speedway plays host to the HyperX 180, getting ready for 120 laps under the lights at this mile-and-a-half racetrack. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. Matt, we were told last week, with the track being as gripped up as it is here tonight and the drivers having the low downforce, speeds over 215 miles per hour, we're kind of in for a mile-and-a-half super speedway race here tonight.
And see, that's the thing where this track, it's pretty much any speedway turns into a super speedway with these Indy cars. And this is one of the fastest. We've seen it in multiple other series where pretty much high banks really mean, I'd say, high chaos.
And definitely the draft going to come into play, having the field close. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I think it's going to be a bit of a survival race for most of these drivers here, as qualifying about 4 minutes away from concluding, with Eric Peterson currently holding the pole position. Yeah, I mean, there's going to have to be a lot of give and take here tonight. If we go back to the season opener at Auto Club, I think that's the best place to kind of compare what we're going to see here tonight. That also was nighttime conditions. They were taking it double wide, 3 wide, and on occasion 4 wide. And there's just going to have to be, early on in this race, drivers racing aggressively but giving each other enough space as well. Otherwise, that one faster pair that drivers have at their disposal, it's not going to mean a whole lot when we get to the end of this race.
See, I almost hear that first faster pair, and I think it almost emboldens these drivers, saying, hey, I mean, I've got one thing to kind of cover me if I mess up or I unfortunately arc a brake into an incident. I don't have to worry. But the main thing is, you know, that move that you may have not been trying because you know you don't have a faster pair. I mean, hey, that's looking a little bit more appetizing. Let me just try and push it, and you know, if I fail, well, I still got a faster pair. I can just repair the car real quick. No worries.
Matt Wagner there clocks in 6th fastest with a 24.620. Wagner coming into this race 5th in points. Actually lost a spot after a hard luck run last week at the Milwaukee Mile. We're looking here at Eric Schaus, a former pole sitter this season in his own right. Obviously, the story coming into tonight has been, as it has been for quite a number of weeks, Robert Mileska III and the momentum he has had all season long. Last week, he ended up going back-to-back for the 3rd time this season, picking up win number 8 on the year. And you know, he's got such a huge points lead and everything. Unless something drastic happens, pretty much the championship, even with 5 races remaining, has got this championship locked up. So now basically what we're looking at is drivers that have a chance to knock him off of other trips to victory lane before the end of the season. Here tonight, one driver that we have to look at would be the defending champion, Nick Degroot. He's right now 4th on the board in qualifying, but he was top of the board in practice and comes into this race as the defending Homestead Miami winner from Season 2.
I'd almost say that Degroot's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because, I mean, no defending champion wants to come into next season and not even really be a factor for the championship. And that's the main thing. So I believe half the drivers in this field, even Degroot, they've all got a little chip on their shoulder saying, hey, I mean, I'm not going to win this championship, but I'm not going to go down without fighting.
And you got to wonder, as we're looking here at the aforementioned Robert Mileska III, who's just now jumped to the top of the board with a 24.563. You know, what's the strategy for a driver like him? Because with the cushion he's got as far as points are concerned and a limited number of races left here in the season, is he going to be conservatively aggressive and kind of tiptoe his way through the field, or is he going to go all out and see if he can pick up 5 more wins in the final 5 races?
I mean, obviously, you can tell yourself all you want that you're just going to lay back and kind of take it easy, but a racer doesn't do that. I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, he wants to go out. He wants to dominate. He wants to say, hey, I didn't win this by almost a slight margin. I won this by a baseball field. So, obviously, he's going to try out and do that. And, again, with these kind of super speedway or speedway-like tracks, track position is everything. You don't want to be back in the field having to kind of fight your way through this because drafts, you don't really want to kind of play with those guys. You just want to be up front.
Robert Mileska III, as we mentioned, has 8 wins this season. He also has 8 poles, and if he holds on for these final 30 seconds, he will be picking up his 9th pole of the season. Another thing about the mile and a half, so we've been to a couple of them this season. Atlanta Motor Speedway, Texas Motor Speedway, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and kind of a running trend for all of them has been drivers really want to make a second groove work. But since it's the longer way around the racetrack, they just can't seem to get the momentum needed to be able to complete passes. What do you think here tonight with Homestead? Is there going to be a second groove, a passing groove for drivers to have more options than we've had at the previous mile and a half tracks this season?
I'd say definitely in previous months, maybe even previous years, that high line just has not been as strong as it used to be. But ever since this recent update, that high line has really started to come back to prevalence. And how you can almost get that aero cushion, but just kind of riding the wall. Now, the effect isn't that great in the non-stock cars, but with the Indy cars, there's still a little bit of an advantage with running that high lane. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few people try it out tonight.
Getting ready to grid up for 120 laps here this evening, and officially it will be the 9th pole on the year for the 91 points leader, Robert Maleska III, as we take a look at the starting lineup for tonight's event. Good solid outing there, though. Good starting track position for Eric Peterson. We keep talking about drivers that even at this point of the season are still trying to get out of the blocks in terms of momentum. And of course, Peterson would be one said driver.
Absolutely. Peterson, I'm trying to, his season has kind of been up and down. I mean, he got his first top 10 a few weeks back, if I'm correct.
Yes, he did.
See, it's been that up and down battle all season for him where he's been in the conversation for multiple kind of race wins, but something's happened every time that kind of just knocks him out of that top 10 and gets knocked him out of contention. So he's definitely looking to turn that around later in the season.
No doubt about it. Peterson, his season got off to a very slow start, and it just kind of never got going. He's 23rd in the point stands, and a big reason why he's down that low is because the way that the point system works out here, I think it's if you finish outside of the top 20 in the running order, you only get 1 point for that race. I mean, that 1 point, just getting that minimal amount, that's huge in terms of your ability to have yourself up there in the championship hunt, let alone up inside the top 10 in points.
And you see why it's so vital with even Maleska still kind of stays up there, and same thing with Van de Sant and Nick Degroot, just kind of stay up there where they still have a theoretical chance, no matter how kind of slim it is, they still have a chance to get up there. So obviously you've got to keep running well.
So 26 drivers in the field here tonight. You saw down through 23rd, AJ Musselman. Those drivers took time. Gail Brooks, Jim Brooks, and Nicholas Winook will be bringing up the rear of the field. All right, so we've talked about how close these drivers are going to be racing here tonight, pack racing, if you will. With that being said, what do these drivers do in terms of planning for fuel strategy? Do they plan for a long green flag run, or do they plan for short spurts here and there?
Listen, this early in a 120-lap race, I'd really just go for saving as much fuel as possible. Now, everyone may be scratching their heads asking me, how do I save fuel on pretty much what would effectively be a super speedway for these tracks, or these cars? Now, you'll see a lot of these cars, at least in the corners, they'll start to let off a little bit, and they'll let the draft kind of pull them through the corner. Now, they won't be that fast. They won't catch the car in front of them, but it'll keep them just at that solid length. They can just let off a corner here, corner there, maybe gang a lap here, gang a lap there, and they can go a little bit further just in case a caution comes out or if they just want to get off strategy.
Robert Maleska III going to bring us down. Green flag is in the air, and we are underway here tonight in the HyperX 180. Battle going to be for second as Victor Santos wasting no time, putting the pressure to the top side on Eric Peterson.
Santos and I'd say Maleska and also Sciausa, I'd say they've kind of been around each other all season, and it hasn't always ended up well.
Like Hobson's going to clear for fourth, and now it's going to be Peterson and Santos battling for second. Back here, double wide, a couple of rows deep with Eric Schaus, Nick Degroot, and the defending winner here at Homestead. Woo! The closing rate off the corners, that kind of makes you a little nervous because even the slightest amount of contact for these drivers, I guarantee you, is going to spell fast repair just based on the fact that they are carrying over 200 miles per hour all the way around this track.
That's the thing. I'm already seeing some movers here. Obviously, at least the biggest mover right now has to be AJ Musselman. Already started in 22nd, kind of already worked his way up to about 18th, 17th here.
Musselman there. You see his machine working his way through traffic. Krista Nelson just up ahead, as well as David Leclaire, the silver and green machine up on the top side. Benjamin Combs in the 77 on the inside. And something I'm noticing here, Matt, there must be some grip these drivers are able to utilize in that second groove, because, I mean, look right here at AJ Musselman was able to use the second lane to get alongside the right side of Kristen Nelson's machine. So there are options even this early on in the race for drivers to be able to utilize that second lane.
I mean, the greatest way to utilize that second lane is kind of stay up there, use the grip lane, kind of help you, and then pinch that other car down as much as you can to get them out of that preferred lane, because you can get a little bit of side draft off them, hopefully pull on right around them.
Of the 8 victories that Robert Maleska III has this season, 5 of them were won from the pole position. He started on the pole here tonight. We'll see if he can go coast to coast for a 6th time this season. But talk about pit road here, as these drivers have gotten themselves pretty nicely spaced out. We've got battles here and there, but nothing real wadded up that would spell out to us an early caution. Pit lane here tonight, is it going to be a challenge for these drivers, or is it one of the easier pit roads to be able to get onto?
It's always a challenge, because Homestead has just a few bumps at the entrance of pit road where if you're not paying attention or you're just going a little bit hot, those bumps could easily get you unsettled, maybe spin out the car. And we've seen people, at least numerous people, kind of wrecked in the entrance before, so it wouldn't be uncommon.
3rd place, actually that's 4th place. It's Eric Schaus getting by AJ Hobson. Hobson gave a shot of crossing over there out of turn 4, but could not find the momentum. And there is Matt Wagner in the 99. You know, you talked about drivers that are now down there outside of the points lead, but still up inside the top 5, like Van de Sant, Nick Degroot, Charles Teed, Matt Wagner. I mean, how important is it for these drivers to just keep up the momentum of the season? A couple of them have been to victory lane, but I mean, how important is it to just close out the year still on a high note, despite the fact that right now, mathematically, it's looking like you're not going to be able to wrestle the championship away from Maleska?
I mean, you got to think, these guys take basically a 2-week off season before we get right back at it for next season, and that's the thing where if you end off on that bad note, well, you're going to be on that bad note most likely for the next 2 weeks until you get the race won. And just how are you having to hold a car and kind of claw yourself out of that's going to make life almost unbearable for you. So if you could have any good positive news carrying into the next season, whether it be maybe a new team or maybe a new paint scheme, even a good finish, that's just any momentum to kind of carry you forward.
Saw right there, almost some near contact between Craig Forsyth and Charles Teed, as Teed got a huge run last time by through turn 2. Also just saw as well on that last lap, something we'll have to keep an eye on with side-by-side battles. Teed's car seemed to get a little bit tight through the center of the corner. You see right there, same deal for Craig Forsyth as he battles the inside of Nick Degroot for 8th. So while there may be grip for these drivers, that right front tire heat obviously is building up and not allowing the car to turn quite as well as it did in the first couple laps.
Well, another factor here obviously is, you notice how he's getting the draft of Forsyth in front of him. That draft could make the car just a little bit more tight in the corners. It does have a kind of an effect to make it a little bit more tight if you're behind a car. Maybe he's been kind of running a little bit back, finally caught the draft, and it's a little bit harder to drive for him.
Craig Forsyth, of course, last season closed out the year with an Indianapolis victory. We'll be going to Indianapolis for the season finale this year as well. And if you kind of look ahead here on the schedule too, if you're looking at tracks where you might be a mid-pack driver most weeks and you're looking for an opportunity to be able to find victory lane, this looks like one of 3 places that you might be circling on your calendar, especially with the fact that next week these drivers are going to be heading to Silverstone. The following week we're going to a place that is aptly named the Tricky Triangle, and that's not named that just for a moniker. It literally is 3 different corners at that triangular 2-mile track at Poconos. So some challenging tracks coming up there where you're not going to be able to go wide open like most of these drivers are here tonight.
You know, there's been some interesting track history behind, Martinsville, and you can think of Darlington on the way. I kind of wonder what the story behind Pocono was.
I'm not sure. That might be something that we're going to have to kind of carry over from between this week and next week and have ready for when we get to Silverstone. One driver that is hitting some issues, despite the fact he's up inside the top 10, Nick Degroot. Looks like some connection problems for the one machine. I've seen him blinking in and out every now and then, and it has subsequently dropped him almost outside of the top 10 as Craig Forsyth and Charles Teed have managed to get around him.
And I know Nick Degroot's pain. I mean, obviously no one wants those connection issues, and when you're driving, there's really nothing you can readily do other than maybe pick up your phone, turn off your Wi-Fi, hope for the best. But it's kind of one of those things where you have to kind of ride it out. But again, if an admin kind of sees it, you do kind of have to give way to the drivers in front, maybe a driver pursuing you, because there is a logical risk there.
A car that I believe just came off of pit lane. That's the 57 of Jim Herrick. And this would obviously be an unscheduled stop for the 57. Not certain what happened to him, but he has now scored 15 laps down from the race leader, Robert Maleska III. Was watching this battle close up for third place between Eric Schaus and AJ Hobson, and to Hobson's credit, he was closing up the gap, running almost up there to the wall on corner entry and running in that light gray area. You can clearly see there's a bit of a dark gray in about the first two, maybe 2.5 grooves from the inside. Then it transitions to light gray, and that's where Hobson has been, maybe trying to lay down a little bit of extra rubber, open up another lane for these drivers.
And you know, there's a lot of drivers who will do that. They'll come out and practice, and they'll just run the high lane. Maybe, and early in the race, they'll just start running the high lane or run a different lane because they want to run there later in the race. And unfortunately for some of these drivers, they'll willingly sacrifice their run early just to get a little bit more grip later in the race. As I'm looking here, down the position order, I did see someone who lost almost about 11 positions off the start, and that had to be the 86 of Todd Schneider. Man, he was about lost a back here.
Yeah, all the way back in the 24th position, 13 seconds behind the race leader, and even 3 seconds behind the next car ahead of him, which would be the 33 of Nicholas Winook, as Victor Santos, AJ Hobson, Eric Peterson, spirited battle here, three-way battle for the third position. You know, we mentioned that Nick Degroot's the defending winner of this race, led 59 of the 120 laps last season, but the thing that kind of jumped out to me as well, we've already documented that this season, season 3, a lot more races added to the schedule as opposed to season 2, but Homestead here tonight is race number 14 on the season. Homestead last season, it was very early on, race number 2.
And see, it's just kind of a different mindset where early in the last season where Degroot was really just trying to get his season kicked off, and at least in this season, this is kind of the wind down section where everyone's trying to solidify their positions and the points and just going for wins.
Battle right now for the 6th position between two drivers that I'm certain are very excited about next week being a road course at Silverstone, because they have finished in the top 3 in every road course that we have been to this season. Matt Wagner has consistently finished in the 3rd position at all of our previous road course stops, and Alex Van de Sant, of course, has a victory at Watkins Glen, and then runner-up finishes all of the remaining road course stops as well. So obviously, you've got to bet that these two drivers are trying to at least gain some really good momentum heading into Silverstone, but I'm not really sure they need it because they've really proved that they can get it done at the left and right-hand turning tracks.
See, I'm kind of interested to see how Silverstone will turn out, just because there's some of those drivers who are at least a little bit better at the American road course tracks than there are at the Euro style or European or UK style of road courses. So I'm kind of interested to see a little bit of that.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Dark Horse puts out the setup for the next race either the evening of or the evening after the previous race. So how much testing do you think is going to go on this week for drivers that either have limited experience or maybe never driven Silverstone?
I think there's going to be obviously kind of the vibe between the drivers of some who, I mean, I can tell them right afterwards, right after the race, I think kind of Maleska, Eric Schaus, I mean, Victor Santos, I mean, some of those guys, I'd imagine them to immediately pull the setup and start practicing. And but I imagine some of the others have maybe 1 or 2 days out from the race, really do some intense testing, trying to get it down. But that's the thing where some of these guys, they may love Silverstone. But the other guys, well, man, I'm great at COTA, I'm great at Road America, but I've never raced Silverstone in my life. So that's kind of the difference of the, at least a little bit of the skill levels.
Craig Forsyth making some moves there on Alex Van de Sant and Matt Wagner. Wagner now crosses him over back to the inside, and now we're starting to see where both lanes are starting to lose some momentum in certain portions of the corner. It looks like the outside line gets a tremendous run from the entry to the center. But then the inside line seems to be getting a little bit more momentum off the corner and onto the straightaway, and that's why we're seeing the pack racing really wadded up from about the 7th position on back, as you can now add Charles Teed and Nick Degroot into this mix.
You know, we say heavily, almost every one of these banked racetracks that track position's key, but also taking advantage of restarts are key. That's the thing where some of these drivers may be banking on another restart, maybe caution here. But there is that full possibility that this race stays green the entire way.
And if this does stay green the entire way, you have to wonder about possible fuel strategy. 120 laps is a long race, and we're going to obviously get an idea of what the fuel window is for these drivers if they end up having to make their first pit stop under green flag conditions. But I'm looking right now, like in terms of lap times, Robert Maleska III, 3.5 seconds over Eric Schaus, another 1.5 seconds back to Victor Santos. And with the aid of the draft there, running behind AJ Hobson the last time around, Alex Van de Sant ran the fastest lap. But he also would have had the benefit of having a car in front of him to save a little bit of fuel, which the top 3 do not have that luxury.
That's kind of the thing where, obviously, Maleska, he's really at the worst possible position here because he is breaking the air for everyone else. He is running up front. There is no draft for him up there at all. So he's probably going to be one of the first ones to pit road, or he's probably going to run it dry before he reaches pit road to kind of force his hand a little bit. Now, the guys behind him, like Eric Schaus, he's kind of in that same position where he has no one in front of him. Santos may be in a little bit better of a situation, but from third on back, it kind of gets to that choice section where, hey, they've kind of been running in draft this entire race. They could probably go a little bit further than everyone else in front of them. And right now, you really need something to kind of equalize that track position because right now you're kind of at a big disadvantage.
So far this season, we have had 4 races at 1.5 mile tracks: Atlanta, Texas, Las Vegas, and Kentucky. 3 of those 4 victories have gone to the driver you're looking at, your race leader, Robert Maleska III. The other one went to Pablo Francis, who we have not seen in the 22 car for a number of weeks. So right now, Maleska not only trying to continue to pad statistics, but trying to go for 80% of his starts at 1.5 mile tracks here this season with a trip to victory lane at the conclusion of it. And his lap times have not really wavered that much, Matt. I've been noticing here that tire wear has not seemed to really come into play in terms of huge drop-off. That last time by, he was only 0.3 of a second slower than his fastest lap, and we're over 30 laps into this run.
You know, I kind of started thinking back a little bit when you started kind of mentioning Robert Maleska kind of won at a bunch of tracks that, you know, we've went to that are in the same configuration, but I really started thinking about Las Vegas in particular, that, man, these corners, these kind of straights, at least a little bit, they remind me of Vegas in a way. So I look back here a little bit. Obviously, Maleska has won that race, but the top 4, 3 of the top 4 are running top 4 right now, with the exception of Victor Santos, which came in, I believe, 11th that race.
You could be correct. That's an interesting statistic there, too, because, you know, obviously they are 1.5 miles in length, but Homestead, it's kind of almost like, if you look at it from an aerial view, it's almost kind of like looking at a rectangle with rounded edges or an oval. But when you look at Las Vegas, it does have that somewhat D-shaped front straightaway. So kind of interesting there. I don't, off the top of my head, remember what the banking is at both tracks respectively.
If you're racing Texas symmetrical?
Possibly. But I don't know if there's like a similarity between the banking in the corners at Homestead and Las Vegas. So if it is at least somewhat close, then you might be right. There could be a huge comfort level for these drivers that did well at Las Vegas when they got ready to take the green flag here. We got a driver on pit road, David Leclaire in the 50. Question is, though, is this scheduled or unscheduled?
Well, I look back his last few laps, and I didn't see any contact with the wall. I'm seeing Jeff Heisong come in here now, so I'm kind of wondering if he was kind of a trendsetter here, maybe jumping out early for a pit stop, maybe running the race backwards.
And there's your answer, because our race leader is on pit road, and I guarantee you that he would not be coming down pit road if this was unscheduled.
That's the thing where I wonder if David Leclaire maybe wasn't saving gas. Maybe he got a little bit separated from the pack and he burned up a little bit more fuel, or just kind of wanted to get a jump on everyone.
One thing that I did notice is that David Leclaire must have gotten into the wall at some
Caution's
point.
out.
Oh, caution! That Peterson?
Yep, it was Peterson. I think he might have missed pit road. Oh, he did. He
Oh,
locked up
boy.
and he got hit from behind. I think that was Wagner.
Eric Peterson, who qualified second place here tonight, up in the top 10. Oh, and now he's looping it around again over there in turn 1. Don't know what's going on there. It's like, oh, he's got suspension problems. Bad suspension problems. That,
I mean,
if you can see it, folks, that left front isn't even touching the ground.
I mean, we talk about Peterson and kind of he runs good but has bad luck, and this is the exact epitome of his season.
Well, look at this. He cannot turn the wheel because there's only 3 of his wheels that are touching the ground. He continues to loop it around because there's no way for him to turn left. There's no tire for the ability to turn left.
And see, this sums up his season. One small mistake and it gets immediately blown out of proportion by just events outside of his control.
Well, as he tries to limp that machine back to pit road, let's take a look and see what happened here. You talked about it, Matt. A very difficult pit road to get onto, and especially with pack racing, just like stock cars at a super speedway, there's got to be communication. I'm coming to pit road, don't run me over. And oh wow. Was Wagner coming to pit road as well, or did he just run low off the corner on purpose? Whichever the case is, put him in a very difficult position and could not in any way avoid the 36.
I believe Wagner was also coming to pit road, but he got a bit spooked. I think he was trying to follow Peterson in, and maybe once he realized that Peterson was about to overshoot the entry, he tried to stay out, but too little too late.
Riding on board here with Matt Wagner. You're going to see up ahead the bright yellow 36. There he is, down towards the inside. Peterson coming to pit lane, and telltale sign was all that tire smoke there. Getting hard on the brakes, trying to woe it up for pit lane, and definite contact there to the left front wing on the 99 machine. But in all honesty, with being on board with Wagner and seeing the damage he sustained, that could have been a lot worse.
That's the thing, or it always can be worse, but realistically, I think Peterson should be at least a little bit kind of a breath of relief here that, yes, he could get back to pit road. I don't think he towed back. No, actually, he managed to drive it back to pit road, got his fast repair. He's still in this race. It's just going to be a little bit more of an uphill battle for him.
2 drivers have retired out of the event. Eric Peterson, one of them. Looks like he'll be finishing 25th here tonight. AJ Musselman has also gone to the garage area. Looks like he will finish 26th. Right now, Jim Herrick runs in 26th, but he has about 12, 13 laps that he would leapfrog both those drivers, moving up to 24th. There were drivers, though, that did not want to see this caution come out. Some of them have been trapped a lap down now. David Leclaire, Jeff Heisong, Dylan Moskowitz, and Benjamin Combs. And also Robert Maleska III. He's still on the lead lap, but the problem for him is when he came down pit road, he ended up losing a lot of track position when everybody else came down pit road here under yellow. The 91, who led the first 35 laps of this race, will be restarting outside the top 15 in 17th place. He will have to deal with traffic for the first time tonight.
And that's that fun thing of track position. That's going to be the most difficult part here.
So Eric Schaus, this caution benefits him. He's going to be the race leader when we take the green flag for our first restart of the night. Alex Van Desant will line up in second. AJ Hobson, Nick Degroot, and Victor Santos, the top 5. Then Craig Forsyth, Charles T., Jimmy Drinan, Matt Wagner, and Covey Moore are going to complete the top 10. Got a driver having for pit road there. I believe that was one of the lap machines that was coming down pit road. I think it actually might have been the 57 of Jim Herrick. And there is a car, I believe that's Todd Snyder, that is running just ahead of the leaders, as well as Nicholas Winook. I don't know if they're going to be able to go around the pace car here and get their lap back or not. There's your answer. They have gone around, and so they will remain on the lead lap. 19 drivers on the lead lap of 24 that are running, as we are now a third of the way through this race.
You know, when you're kind of talking about Covey Moore there, I actually started digging at least a little bit deeper into his stats. Man, he has had a good last few weeks. obviously with the exception of Watkins Glen, but I mean, 5th at Vegas, 4th at Kentucky, 3rd at Milwaukee. I mean, at least with the trend, it only seems at least kind of reasonable that you get 2nd here. Your thoughts?
I'm not going to say my thoughts. I was going to leave Covey Moore alone because I talked about him at Watkins Glen and kind of put the commentator's curse on him, so I'm leaving him alone this race.
Oh, and I also just saw from at least like driver's chat, Moskowitz actually got a black flag because he was watching the wreck and sped in the pits.
Well, he was already a lap down, I do believe. And he'll be restarting, still minus 122nd. Green flag back in the air. Update on Eric Peterson. He has actually returned back into the server and back onto the racetrack, albeit 3 laps down in 24th. So only 1 position for Jim Herrick to be able to pick up here as AJ Musselman looks like he has officially DNF from this race. And look at this back here. 3 wide, Nick Degroot with Hobson and Forsyth.
I'm going to tell you, if I was Art Maletzka all the way back in 18th, I'd be looking at the 3 wide up here and like, oh man, this is going to be an uphill battle.
I believe that red and black machine right there is the 18 of Jeff Highsong. Remember that the lead lap cars and the lap machines all run intermingled with where they are on the restart. So it's kind of almost like dealing with lap traffic for some of these leaders.
That's the thing where I don't really know if Jeff Highsong wants to be up here, but it's more or less, hey, I'm up here now, and I'm just hoping for at least a quick caution, see if I can get another wave around or see if I can get a free pass.
Jimmy Drinan there in the 94. Of course, that being a Dan Weldon throwback on his machine. Now trying to hold off Covey Moore for the 7th position. Matt Wagner back there as well as Charles Teed, a couple of former winners this season. Wagner winning back in the season opener at Auto Club. Charles Teed following up the following week at Iowa.
Covey Moore just got really close to the right rear of it. Looked like Dryman.
You saw with him having to lift, having to check up, that loss of momentum also dropped him a spot to Matt Wagner and now has him under fire from Charles Teed. And how about the 7 of Gary Corley?
That's the thing, at least on these banked ovals, when you have an issue, it rains, but definitely it pours. I mean, any mistake is kind of magnified because you have about 2 or 3 guys behind you just waiting for that one little slip up to take advantage.
Battle for second place going to take place about 3/10 of a second behind race leader Eric Schaus. And we talk about the draft here. I have to wonder, with the fact that we're seeing here Van de Sant jump down to the bottom trying to get clean air to the nose, is it possible if a driver gets ahead and say 2 drivers, second, third, hook up nose to tail, can they together close up the gap between themselves and the race leader?
Easily, if those cars start battling, or at least kind of the first place is all sitting duck, I mean, easily 2 cars can kind of work together and get up there. But, same works in reverse, where if the 2 up front cars are battling, if you got any way help behind you, or at least just enough of a draft off, it will help you exponentially just gain right up.
Look at that as we look from the back of Eric Schaus. That was about 5 car lengths gained right there in the matter of 1 straightaway as Nick Degroot is closing in for the top position. And a little update about Robert Maleska III. He restarted back around the 18th position. He's only picked up 2 spots since the green flag came back out up to 16th place. So it's kind of a question mark of, is he just riding as he's back there, or is he finding difficulty being back in traffic, having not had to deal with it in the first 35 laps of this race?
Realistically, I think it's just that battle of he's kind of in that bad air position. He's kind of in a bad track position. And you really can't make up very much time when you're back there. You have to spend a lot of time just trying to get through the field. And you don't want to burn up your tires, but they're not going to make it easy for you because they're fighting for the positions as well. So I think it's going to be a kind of a whole race recovery project for him.
That's Jim Brooks in the 76, who didn't even put down a qualifying lap here tonight. Started back, I believe it was in the 24th position this evening. And he, along with Nicholas Winook, are going to do some battling. And they've got the lap machine of Benjamin Combs, the Napa 77, in between the 2 of them. This is around the 15th position. Best battle up towards the front, though, is going on for 5th place. That's where AJ Hobson and the brightly neon yellow colored 24 of Victor Santos are.
Man, I'm just looking at Eric Schaus here. He is, I'd say almost he's due for a win. Didn't win it all in Season 2, hasn't won in Season 3, but man, he has come so close.
Here we bring up Watkins Glen.
Yeah, 2 second-place finishes. He was almost a shoo-in for Watkins Glen. That one got taken away. And I mean, just so many top fives and just not a win yet. So I definitely say he's one of the guys who are due tonight.
And not only his finishing results, but his qualifying efforts have been really good as well. It seems like every week that 72 is starting upwards somewhere inside of the top 5. As a matter of fact, has sat on the pole position in 2 races this season, at Phoenix and at the aforementioned Watkins Glen.
Easily, I mean, you can tell that he's kind of elevated his game. I almost want to say put more work into it, or at least it visibly looks like he's put more work into it.
Now, one thing that we didn't get to see was a complete cycle of green flag pit stops. Whoa, Nick Degroot, what a run there out of Forsyth. He goes back to the inside of, I believe that's the lap machine of David Leclaire, as he and the 317 of Van de Sant continue to battle for second place. But we had Robert Maleska III come down pit road around lap 34-35. We know that he had been out in clean air, so he was using up a lot of fuel. It's kind of hard to tell if he was short pitting or if that was indeed how far he could go. But I mean, are we looking then maybe projected 35 to 40 laps for these drivers on a tank?
It could be, but I'd also like to kind of wave that kind of a disillusion in there that earlier on they were kind of drafting a little bit. Now we've gotten a bit more spread out. So I'd be kind of wondering about that. And everyone looks like they've gotten a bit more racy as well.
Not sure what's happened to the 94 of Jimmy Drynan as he comes down to the attention of his crew. Drynan restarted up inside of the top 10. It kind of faded back to inside of the top 15, and that looks like a regularly scheduled stop, but I'm not certain.
Not quite. It looks like him and Matt Wagner are battling. It looks like Drynan came down. Wagner just kind of pushed up a little bit, and they met in the middle. Got Drynan just a little bit loose, but ended up smacking the right front into the wall. Almost flipped over.
Tough break there for Jimmy Drynan. He's made 8 of the 13 starts this season, still looking for his first top 10, and based off of the timely caution, gained a lot of track position, as stated, was up inside of the top 10. And look at this. All of a sudden, Nick Degroot and Alex Van de Sant, this battle for second is 1.5 seconds behind Eric Schaus. I mean, I thought that the two of them working together was going to keep the 72 within closing distance. It's almost seemed to do the exact opposite.
I mean, really, it's there, but I've been noticing at least Nick Degroot and Van de Sant obviously just kind of battling. They haven't really had any interest in working together. It seems like they really just want to battle for second place.
Obviously, in the case of Maleska III, we can maybe assume that he was short pitting, but I brought up earlier, and it's still holding true even now, as these drivers are about, 20 laps into this stint now. There's only about a 0.2 of a second fall off from Eric Schaus's best lap to the lap that he just ran. 25.3 for his fastest lap, 25.5 this last time by. So there's not a whole lot of fall off, not a lot of time being lost. I would say that kind of takes a short pitting strategy out of the equation in terms of trying to gain track position and gain time on the track with fresh tires, fresh Firestones.
True, but it also kind of runs in the fact of, I mean, obviously when you're coming down for a pit stop, your box time is roughly about 7 to 8 seconds. Are you willing to kind of take that 1 second extra or 1 second less that it would be to change all 4 tires just for fuel? Or is it worth it to take all 4 and just spend 1 extra second on pit road and then have fresher tires at least later in the run?
I think it's going to be interesting too, as we know that these drivers, at least we're projecting, cannot make it on fuel.
Heard Gary Corley almost came down the wall, took out the 91. And they are really battling hard back to the 10th.
That's Maleska in the 91 machine, trying to crack the top 10 after restarting back in the 17th position. Goes right up against the outside wall. I mean, goodness, you can't go any higher unless you want to be the wall.
I mean, he tried to pass Corley on the bottom and just didn't work. So, obviously you can't pass him on the bottom. Let's try the top.
Now, another thing that we got to bring up here, I was just going to mention about the fuel window for these drivers. We know that they cannot make it the rest of the way without at least coming to pit road one more time. With the timing of our first and only yellow flag, does that put some doubt into these drivers' minds of coming to pit road maybe a lap or two early? Is it going to be now, well, we got to stretch it as far as we possibly can because we don't want to have the same situation happen that happened to guys like Leclaire and Highsong and Combs, where they were caught on pit road, trapped a lap down, and weren't able to get it back?
And see, that's kind of the thing where it sucks if you do and sucks if you don't. It sucks if you do because you come down early. I mean, there is that chance of a caution. It could trap you a lap down. But, I mean, if you wait so long, even if there is a caution, you have less than one lap in the tank, I mean, you're going to have to come down a closed pit road anyway, and you're going to be all the way at the end of the field.
I just noticed a name up here inside of the top 10 that I don't think we've talked about quite often at all. How about Josh Garner in that 12 machine right now, holding down the 9th position and looking ahead at a side-by-side battle for 7th between Matt Wagner and Covey Moore. Solid outing out of Josh Garner here tonight.
That's the thing, Josh. I mean, he's had, I mean, you said it, pretty much a good run. I'd be kind of, I've seen Covey and Gardner kind of run together a lot. I wouldn't be surprised to see those two finish at least in the top 5.
Josh Gardner's best finish this season was a top 5 run, 4th back at Gateway. That's one of only 2 finishes he's had inside of the top 15 this season. So certainly looking for a bit of momentum is the driver of the 12, as he'll now look to get 7th place from Covey Moore, as they both completed a pass around the 99 of Matt Wagner. Further back, Robert Maleska III still having to deal with Gary Corley. Corley not letting him get away.
Yeah, Corley's just kind of hanging on there. You know, kind of looking at drivers that, you know, we don't really talk about usually, at least in the top 10, top 5. AJ Hobson, surprisingly, is one of the guys that we just don't talk about very much because, I mean, he's only finished in the top 5 twice this season, and it was at Gateway and it was at Phoenix.
2 tracks that require quite a bit of heavy braking. Brakes very little usage here tonight at Homestead. Yeah, you're right. Great performance for him. Hobson 14th in the point standings coming into tonight's event, and could possibly be en route for his best finish of the season if he can continue to keep it up here inside of the top 5. And another driver that's really making some moves back there, almost kind of running the line we saw Maleska running right up against the wall, is Craig Forsyth. He goes down to the bottom here in 1 and 2, but he's been running really high through 3 and 4.
And if you want to talk about an up and down season, I mean, Craig Forsyth is almost the poster child for it. I mean, 6th, 3rd, then wrecks out at Atlanta, then another 3rd and 3rd, and then 2 down races, and then it goes right back. That's the problem where, I mean, he's kind of the embodiment of, hey, bring me the checkered flag or bring me the steering wheel, but just unfortunately he's brought the steering wheel home more often than not.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we ended up broadcasting the season finale in Season 2 for Dark Horse IndyCar Series, and Craig Forsyth, of course, winning at Indianapolis, and we were kind of looking at him as we entered into Season 3 as the guy to watch, and then all of a sudden it's like, what happened to all that momentum from winning the Indy 500 and being able to kiss the yard of bricks? You're absolutely right, an up and down season, so it'll be interesting to see what the mentality looks like for this 27 car, see if he can get back-to-back Indy 500 victories, but of course that's going to be in about 4 weeks' time, and he's trying to see if he can maybe get a win before that here tonight. Still solidly up inside the top 10, and really in terms of lap times too, he's been about one of the top 5 fastest cars consistently on the long run all evening.
You know, come and think about it. I mean, maybe the reason that Craig Forsyth just isn't that great, maybe just is the car. I mean, obviously the R14 is a much different beast than the DW12, and that's the big thing where the cars, they do look semi-similar, but there's a lot of aerodynamic changes on the newer cars than there are the older cars, and these are, I'd say at least a little bit more stable, but they lack that kind of straight line speed that you'd find out of the DW11 or the R18.
That is a great point. Didn't even think of that as we look out the windshield of the 317 of Van de Sant. He and Nick Degroot. I think that these guys have been around each other so much they got to send each other Christmas cards this year, because there has been no more than 3 car lengths separating these two since we went back green flag racing back on our only restart. And we are now closing in here, Matt, as well on when these drivers have to start thinking about coming to pit road. 35 laps into this stint.
Now, obviously, I did notice at least a little bit that Maleska did he kind of pull a cheeky move and tried to kind of pit a little bit earlier. He pitted, I think, about 3 laps before everyone, or 3 laps after everyone else. So he decided to come down and do one more stop, just top off. So he's got about 3 laps than everyone else.
Interesting to see how that plays out for the driver of the 91. And of course, as we mentioned too, with the huge points lead he's got the luxury of being able to do some strategy outside the box like that. And very impressive here as well. Mentioned him starting outside the top 15 for that restart. That caution kind of hurting him in terms of track position as Eric Schaus, race leader on pit road, but slowly, methodically, Robert Maleska III, before Schaus hit pit road, had worked his way up 9 positions from 17th to 8th.
And that's the thing. I mean, I've kind of seen his plus minus on his positions gained and / lost. I've almost seen that equalize. I mean, obviously he qualified on pole, but right now he's only 5 positions out of that top point.
Obviously, we know that in practice, drivers kind of test the limits of what they're able to do to prepare themselves for race conditions. And we've already seen a driver in Eric Peterson have an issue trying to get to the entrance of pit road, but the work's not done even then. I noticed a couple of drivers, when they came down pit lane to do some mock green flag pit stops, even slide through and overshoot their box. So that could be something that could come into play here if we indeed have this entire green flag pit stop cycle take place with less than 45 laps to go.
You know, it might sound a little bit funny, but I mean, obviously that makes sense. I mean, of course, as a driver, I mean, when you're going around here about 200 miles an hour, the biggest fear is stopping. How in the world am I going to stop? So obviously when you're coming to pit lane, I mean, you really got to get on those brakes, but you can't lock it up. We're going to see a kind of an issue like what happened to Peterson earlier. Where, I mean, you kind of see that, and I almost saw smoke on pit road there.
That was smoke. That was Degroot. He completely locked up the front tires.
But that's the thing, I mean, you kind of worry about that. And, you know, obviously you want to carry as much speed in the pit road as possible because, again, I mean, however much time you gain on pit road, I mean, that's going to be a lot in track position that you don't have to fight for. With this track being so harsh on track position and everything, you need to save as much time as possible.
You talked about Robert Maleska III staying out, or not starting out, but coming to pit road a couple of laps after everybody else did on the 1 to green. He's actually on pit road now in the 91, so a driver that we would have expected to stay a little bit longer.
I didn't see. Matt Wagner actually ended up locking him up coming on the pit road. He spun around.
Looks like he made it on, though. Kobe Moore is in. Jim Brooks in this lap as well, and here comes the then new race leader, Alex Van Desant. He's on pit road. Josh Garner, Gary Corley, Craig Forsyth. That turns the race lead over now to the 71, the Baskin-Robbins machine of Gail Brooks.
But man, just looking at Covey Moore and Matt Wagner, I mean, Matt Wagner came right in on Covey's bumper. I mean, look at the separation now. Wagner's just exiting pit road while Covey's almost in turn 3 here at the moment.
And here comes Gail Brooks onto pit lane. Oh, that's a lot of lockup with the left front. Looks like he's going to make it on safely, though. And as things cycle around, I think it's going to be Nick Degroot taking the top position. Indeed, it is. What happened to the 72 of Eric Schaus? I think he might have sped there, Matt, because looks like he was held on pit road with a 40-second penalty.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's kind of the textbook of speeding. That's the main thing, and ways to kind of lose this race. I mean, that has exactly exemplified his season. I mean, it's been so close, but so far caution's out.
Gary Corley, I saw his telemetry really dropping, and I'm not certain what happened to him.
Oh, he rode the fence.
Yellow flag comes out. Fortunately, at least this time, drivers can breathe a sigh of relief that the green flag pit stops had indeed cycled. Let's go back and see what happened.
He might have gotten a little bit of assistance from Manook. I'm not exactly sure what in the world happened here.
We're going to go back here with him coming off of pit lane. Drivers have to use the access road all the way to the exit of turn 2. Let's back up onto the racetrack. There is Wanook that you were talking about, and
he just kind of drove right in the back of him.
He did.
I mean, I understand it at least a little bit. There's about a 20-mile-an-hour difference there, but I mean, for both Corley and it looks like Wanook, I mean, you got to have that heads-up awareness. I mean, you know that, listen, that guy who's coming out of pit road, he wants to get out of your way as quick as possible, and you're entering turn 3. He's kind of wanting to pull up. Now, I mean, that's kind of on Wanook here a little bit because, I mean, if you're running in the back of a guy, you got to see him. But, you know, that's also kind of on Corley where, I mean, you were not close enough to the entrance of 3 to really start pulling up like that. I think fault's on both hands here.
You know, when I made the reference about Robert Mileska III when he was running up high, that if he ran any higher, he'd be running the wall, that was a joke. Gary Corley just proved it can be done.
I think there's a grip lane up there. I think it can make it work.
I think there is. I mean, the telemetry on that car was going down very slowly. He was keeping some good momentum up there.
I think the man accelerated as soon as he hits the fence.
Well, I mean, what do you think? Drivers keep that in their memory bank if they want to pass for the win? I doubt that the race leader's going to go up there to try to block.
I mean, I've seen cars at the bull ring start riding the fence a little bit to get a little bit of extra speed. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a new tactic, but I mean, I don't know if you need to be that flashy.
And Bowman Gray's got the infield, so why not run the outfield here at Homestead? But with this caution coming out, I think we can safely say now everybody's good to go on fuel. So now it's basically the situation of you've got what you've got, whether you've got good starting track position and you want to maintain it, or you're back in the mid-pack and have to make forward progress. Basically, the ball's in your court now.
That's the thing where this is kind of where drivers excel and drivers falter, where, I mean, hey, they may overthink it and think themselves out of a really good situation. I mean, I kind of want to use Robert Mileska as kind of a example for this. Obviously, he kind of got messed up a little bit by his strategy when he ended up pitting right before that yellow flag. Right now, it kind of seems like it's worked out a little bit.
And how about Nick Degroot? He cycled around as the race leader. We saw him take the lead off of turn 2 when Van de Sant was coming off of pit lane. Of course, trying to win back-to-back races at Homestead, Miami. But, I mean, if you look right now at our top 3, you've got Degroot, who's trying to pick up his second win on the season, and as mentioned, the defending winner of this race. You've got Van de Sant, who has a victory this season, second in the point standings, but that victory was at a road course. And then third place, you've got Robert Mileska III, chasing his league-leading 9th win of the season. So, a lot of storylines up here at the front, a lot of drivers with good momentum, and 3 drivers that are running right now, first, second, third in the point standings.
You know, I don't really want to make it seem like it's really these two, but it always comes down to, but I mean, at least in recent weeks, it's always been these two that it really came down to. It had to be Degroot and Mileska. I mean, they've just kind of went toe for toe, and obviously, I mean, Miletska's kind of gotten the better of him each battle, but I mean, it's been exciting to watch each time.
And you've seen Mileska just kind of, as soon as the season started, it's been like a blaze of fire. He has not let up on his momentum at all. Nick Degroot, on the other hand, it's kind of been a scratch and claw his way through the point standings. Ended up getting caught up in a wreck on the final lap in the season opener at Auto Club. I believe he was 13th in the point standings after 3 races, and he's done a masterful job of at least getting himself up there into the top 3 in the point standings, and you just kind of get a feeling based off his momentum. As you were talking about, it just seems like he sees 2 every week. You just keep getting that feeling week after week that one car is not far away from finding victory lane again.
And see, that's the thing. I mean, we criticize so many of the early mistakes. I mean, at least the one mistake that really sticks out in my mind had to be Motegi, where he was in a great spot for a great points day. Wasn't a winning car, but really in a good spot. But he ended up under fueling the car in the last pit stop and had to pit one more stop more than everyone else, and ended up finishing, I think, somewhere near the 15th, 20th position. That really kind of exemplified the season.
Green flag set to come back out with less than 40 laps to go. 18 cars on the lead lap of 24 that are still running. Gary Corley brought his machine back to the garage area. He will join AJ Musselman. Nick Degroot, the control car, up through the gears. We're back underway in the HyperX 180 at Homestead.
Looks like there's a little bit stack up in the back here. Well,
That
actually,
was
looks like...
That
yeah,
Jim
looks like-
Herrick in the 57, I think, that's in the middle of these lead lap cars. 3 wide. Whoa, Santos. Did he get the white line there? Maybe the apron? Because that car lost a ton of momentum and almost pushed up the track.
That's the thing. I mean, you want to kind of use the track limits as much as possible, but some track limits are not enforced just because there's no grip down there. That's the thing.
Gail Brooks, how about the timing of that caution? Stayed out, led a lap, was the last car to hit pit lane, and now finds himself there in the 6th position. So very timely yellow for him, has him just knocking on the door of the top 5, and look at this. throw a blanket over the top three. Van de Sant took the lead from Nick Degroot, but Maleska the third right there as well. These three separated by 0.2 of a second.
You know, I was kind of hoping you wouldn't talk about Gail Brooks there. I mean, he, again, has been another one of those kind of stars of, we talk about him and this something unfortunate happens to him. I mean, almost like a missile out of nowhere just takes him out. That's a dangerous game you're playing.
It's been a lot of drivers that we could kind of talk about. Ooh.
Wreck of the front straightaway one. Oh no, Gail Brooks. No.
And, oh, we've got cars flipping. That's Jim Brooks, Benjamin Combs. I see Forsyth, Krista Nelson. Oh boy, we talked about the high speeds. High speeds can lead to high impact wrecks, and that's what we just had right there.
Man, you need to look on the onboard of Dylan Moskowitz in the 3. Man, he was right. The seas just parted for him. He missed everything.
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of customers on pit road asking for fast repairs and a side of fries. Let's go back and see what happened here to bring out the third caution of the evening at Homestead, and it was a big one in every sense of the word.
I'd love if you'd stop cursing Gail Brooks.
I'm sorry.
That poor man just wants a good finish.
This was a battle, I believe, for the 4th position at the time between Santos and Hobson. I think Santos just mistimed his move. Oh, gracious. And then the track's just completely blockaded up there in turn 1. You see the 63 going through the grass. We'll go back and get a couple more camera angles to see the full extent of the carnage over there in the first corner.
That's the thing, Moskowitz. He kind of did that old NFL running back kind of play where he just let everyone else kind of block all the cars for him, just drove right on through.
Where do you go in this situation? Because the 63 came down 4 lanes and collected up about 6 cars in its path.
See, that's the thing where AJ was trying his best just to hang on to it and trying to save it. But, I mean, obviously, at 200, your reaction time is pretty slim. So your time to act is almost none, and that's the thing where I don't really think AJ wanted to come down in front of everyone, but he was trying his best just to keep it straight.
The driver that has now gone to the garage area that almost had this thing missed is David Leclaire. Watch this as he sees the smoke. He's good, he's good, he's good, and at the last minute, he's going to get clipped right here by the back end of Gail Brooks' machine, and oh man, that is a tough break. A lot of time to be able to react. Almost had the thing completely avoided, but that last little point of impact there, the last car that he had to pass, and that's going to put him in the garage area along with Benjamin Combs. We're going to see if we can take a few more onboards here if our camera survived. We'll see if Benjamin Combs has a onboard for us, as looks like he has also now gone back to the garage area.
That's the thing. I mean, he had a ride all the way in that fence. Man, he saw how much grip was in that fence.
Well, I mean, you know, we mentioned here tonight, super speedway type racing, pack racing for these drivers. And with drivers in so close proximity to each other, these type of big wrecks are going to take place. The question is now, though, and we've entered into the second half of this race. Actually, we were in the final third of this race when they took that last green flag. Are we going to see a little bit more of this as we get closer to the checkered flag?
Definitely, as time starts to tick down. I mean, obviously, you know that clock's ticking down for everyone. Saying, man, right now we're about within 30 laps of this checker. Obviously, pit strategy is a little bit out of the cards now, at least with the exception of green white checkers or anything else in that regard. So, in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, all I need is a full tank of fuel right now. I'll be good to go to the end. I think I can win this.
The 12 of Josh Garner. Looks like he got a piece of it. And there you saw back there, that was Jim Brooks and Benjamin Combs airborne. And I saw a number of drivers that left the scene of the accident. Kind of similar to what we saw earlier on with Eric Peterson. All that suspension damage, drivers spinning out in their attempt to get back to pit road because they just couldn't drive the car on 3 wheels, or for some of these drivers, 2 wheels.
That's the thing, that's why some of these guys who missed it, I mean, they're just kind of saying, man, how in the world did I do that? I mean, I'm looking at people like Covey Moore, Dylan Moskowitz. I mean, they were the real winners out of this, where, I mean, most of their competition up front of them pretty much got taken out, and they got a free pass through. I mean, Covey, I don't even know if Covey lifted. Moskowitz was on the bottom screaming, and Covey was just powering on through the top.
Victor Santos, who had that contact with A.J. Hobson leading to that wreck, he is now going to be up in the 4th position, and there you see Kobe Moore, as you mentioned, now inside of the top 5. Now, the good news for all the drivers involved, for the most part, they had a faster pair still available. They only have had 3 cautions here tonight. The first one was a pit road incident on pit road entry. The second one was a 2-car incident on the back straightaway with some emerging disagreement off of pit road. And so most of these drivers all had that faster pair available. The bad news is that faster pair is now gone. So if we have future incidents, no faster pair to fall back on.
And see, that's what makes it so scary, which is, I mean, you wanted that faster pair to fall back on in case something happens, but obviously we're in the last 30 laps. You have to push. You cannot lay back here.
I believe Jeff Heisung, the 18, got the free pass under this yellow flag, so we've got 17 cars on the lead lap now. 2 drivers -1, Dylan Moskowitz and Eric Schaus, who, of course, led quite a bit of this race, but got busted with a pit road speeding penalty. So both of them hoping to see a couple more yellows get back on the lead lap as the battle for the lead is on. Robert Maleska III started on pole, wants to get back to the lead. He jumps to the top side on Van de Sant.
Now I'm looking at Degroot and Santos here. I mean, they are coming. They just want to see these 2 battle up here just so they can get up there and just kind of make it a 4-car fight.
But at the same time, are they kind of stifling their own momentum to get up here with the top 2, as now they settle it back out to single file for 3rd and 4th place. And how about Jimmy Drynan? Come back there for the 94. We saw him come down pit road, lose a lot of track position with a very early pit stop. You mentioned him making some contact with Matt Wagner. He's been able to combat that and now battles with Charles Teed for 6th place. Now going to go up to the 3rd lane. Not quite to the wall. Trying to see what's up there, just in case he reels in these top 2 side by side. And now Santos jumps way down to the bottom.
And it looks like Maleska managed to just get by Alex for that top spot. Definitely a battle for 2nd here with Degroot and Van de Sant.
Van de Sant now going to lose that spot as Nick Degroot using the top lane. Now Santos going to jump up there, and all of a sudden the 317 appears to be losing some momentum. I don't know if it's just based off the fact that he's on that inside line, the top line's a little bit stronger, or if maybe all of a sudden that 317's handling not to his liking. Look at Nick Degroot. Woo! Almost got into the right rear quarter panel there going into turn 3.
That's the thing where a lot of these guys, people will say all the time, their car handles better and they're up front. I don't know if it's actually just how it handles or maybe they just feel better being ahead of everyone else, but definitely Alex is not liking his car here at the moment.
Right now, you've got your entire top 5 separated by 0.7 of a second. Maleska, Degroot, Van de Sant, Victor Santos, and Covey Moore. Degroot kind of testing the waters here right now. I gotta wonder, with 20 laps to go, if we don't have a caution, how much time does Nick Degroot have to experiment before he absolutely has to go get that clean air to the nose of his machine, getting around the 91?
See, for right now, I wouldn't even be worried about really track position. I'm more worried about fuel here at the moment. And we've seen these guys pit with about 35, 36 laps in their run. I mean, there's 20 laps to go here. Right now, Maleska has been on this run for about last 22 laps. So, I mean, he would be at 42 laps for the entire run.
That's something that we've noticed as well on both of our rounds of green flag pit stops. The race leader at the time seemed to have to come down a lot earlier than most of the other competitors. Maleska was down very early on the first cycle, and Eric Schaus was down quite early as opposed to most of the other drivers up inside the top 10 on the second cycle. So for Nick Degroot, if it is a question of fuel, the more laps you run behind the 91, the more fuel you would be saving, and the more fuel that the race leader would be using up.
See, that's the thing where I wonder if Degroot's really just trying to play that long game here at the moment, just trying to stay behind him. Obviously, Victor Santos wants around, but I don't know if he can get that good enough run to get by him.
Certainly tried right there as he was dodging left and right down the back straightaway, trying to find a lane, and we know that he's going to be aggressive. Santos was aggressive with a move there on A.J. Hobson that led to the contact and the big wreck over in turn 1. As if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go back, but I'm pretty certain that Santos actually never put down a practice lap here today. Saw he was in the server for most of the practice session, but I don't think he ever actually got out on track. So very impressive with no practice laps this evening that he's right now holding down the final spot in the podium.
Just looking outside here, we're seeing one guy I really expected to kind of go off here. Thought he would have a little bit more speed here and kind of be able to stick with Santos. But I'm a little bit surprised, and obviously Van de Sant obviously kind of pulled it back together, but Jimmy Dryman, it almost looks like, is almost a new player in this.
Right now in 6th, and then behind him you've got the lap machine of Dylan Moskowitz. And Van de Sant, all of a sudden, that car just does not look as strong as it did early on in this race. Spent a good portion of the first half of this race battling Nick Degroot for 2nd place. Eventually went up and took the race lead himself, but then when Degroot and Maleska got around him, he's just kind of been free-falling. However, I'm going to throw a little log on the fire of conspiracy theories, if you will. He talked about fuel. Was he backing off his pace to save a little bit?
He might be. He may have actually kind of overextended himself, but it's kind of odd seeing that chili seasoning machine not attacking, as I see most do this season.
Big attacking. Charles Teed attacking Josh Garner for 7th. Craig Forsyth back there as well in the 9th position. And how about the comeback run for Jeff Hysong? Got the lucky dog a couple of cautions ago, and now finds himself up inside of the top 10. So what could have been a very poor finish, all of a sudden is looking like it's going to be a solid outing for him.
As I'm kind of running numbers for fuel here, I mean, I'd say really from Drynan on back, they should all be good on fuel without a worry. Once we start getting about Covey Moore, Van de Sant, Santos, that's when I start getting a little bit concerned about fuel, because again, even with the caution laps, that's still about a 36 to 38 lap run, which means we don't know how far these guys can go.
All right, so my question to you is, as we've talked about the huge points gap that Maleska III has and the ability to be able to try a different strategy, if you are maybe a lap short on fuel, do you still try and go for it?
I mean, obviously, you're always going to go for it. It's just a thing of, you don't want anyone to call you on your bluff. I mean, if anyone asks you, of course I have enough fuel. I don't know what you're talking about. But obviously, you're hoping for that caution. You're kind of in the back of your head, you're saying, well, right now, if I am good, I am good. I'm just going to run it to the end. I'd be better off just turning that fuel gauge off and not worrying about it. If you're not good, you're kind of just sitting here like, man, I hope there's a caution coming out. And if you're barely good, you're saying, oh, well, I hope this caution doesn't come out. I'm not going to pit anyway.
I talked with Brad Kozlowski pre-race. He helped me install a reserve tank. Almost a wreck off of 4 as Charles Teed and Josh Garner were battling for 8th place. And I think Garner almost hit the wall, turned left to make sure he didn't hit it, and Teed was there, and we very nearly had ourselves a late race yellow and a potential shootout. Credit to both drivers being able to keep it straight. I don't know if contact was exchanged, but it was awfully close.
Those are teammates, by the way. That is going to be an interesting conversation.
No harm, no foul. Both of them still running where they were at the time of that incident off of 4. Garner in 8th, Teed right now in 9th, and they got Jeff Hysong behind them in that 10th position. And, there's a couple of drivers here that got bits and pieces of that wreck, some more so than others, over in that big one in turn 1. Garner was 1. Craig Forsyth, who's in 7th, was 1, as well as A.J. Hobson, who the wreck started with. He's up here in the 11th position. So, despite the fact getting involved in the wreck, having that faster pair, still competitive, still in the running for a top 10 finish.
See, that's the thing they're kind of banking on. They're kind of hoping that maybe these fresh tires, maybe a little bit of gas, maybe that can kind of steal away a good top 5, good top 10.
5 laps to go here for Robert Maleska III. We keep talking about his statistics, and each week he continues to give us new stats to talk about in the upcoming race. So far, he has been absolutely flawless this evening. He had a caution come out not at a time that he would have liked, but still slowly and methodically worked his way from outside of the top 15 back up to the race lead, and right now holds nearly 2 seconds between himself and Nick Degroot. And I think a thing that we keep saying about Robert Maleska in the closing stage of this race is as well, it's kind of like we have it on loop. The one flag he does not want to see in that flagman's hands is the yellow flag.
I mean, that could be subjective. I mean, I don't know how well he is on fuel, but right now, I mean, he is going full pace. So I'd have to say he's pretty confident about making it.
Last time by, ran only 0.2 slower than his fastest lap, a 25.4. And that's 0.2 faster than any other driver in the field. So yeah, or this could be the bluff you're talking about, making these drivers think, maybe he can make it on fuel. Only that driver in the 91 knows.
And that's the thing. I mean, you're going to find out almost here and now. I mean, obviously he's flying. I don't see him saving fuel, so I'm kind of a little bit head scratched here.
Well, the thing I gotta wonder is, let's say he's projected to run out of turn 4, run out of fuel. Maybe trying to build enough of a gap between himself and Nick Degroot that he could coast to the start-finish line. We're about 1.5 miles away from finding out, as the white flag was just displayed for Robert Maleska III, looking for win number 9 on the season.
Hey, maybe Maleska actually does have a reserve tank. He is flying.
Look at this, right up against the wall off of turn 4, and Robert Maleska III is going to win the HyperX 180 here tonight at Homestead, Miami. If the championship wasn't already clinched in here coming into tonight, it absolutely is now. 9 poles, 9 wins on the season, and it's the 5th time this season that he has gone coast to coast in the Dark Horse IndyCar Series.
I'd say the person I'm actually most proud of has to be Kobe Moore. I mean, obviously keeping that top 5 streak alive. He's definitely going to have a lot of momentum going into the next season.
I think this might be, I have to double check, but I think this might be a best finish of the season for Jimmy Drynan in 6th.
I actually think there may have been a little bit of retaliation post-race. I saw the, looks like maybe the 63 had a little bit of a disagreement with the 24.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it looks like there may have been a disagreement on a few things.
Santos is going to finish in 3rd here tonight. Hobson going to finish inside the top 10 in the 10th position. But bear in mind, when he and Santos made their contact that led to our 3rd caution of the evening, they were battling at the time for 3rd place.
I have to say, the biggest heartbreak in my mind has to be Eric Schaus. I mean, this is never one of those textbook situations where, man, the biggest enemy was himself. Unfortunately, I mean, he was doing great.
Pitted from the lead too, when he had that black flag. I mean, you know, if you're a mid-pack car, rear of the field car, yeah, of course that's going to hurt, but it's even worse when you know that you had a car that was capable of winning this race, was out in front dominating. That just makes the blow even worse.
That's the thing. I mean, you kind of get excited, you get your hopes up here, and unfortunately, that's the story of the season. Unfortunately,
take a look at our finishing results here tonight. Now, Maleska III, Nick Degroot, Santos, Van de Sant, these guys were mainstays up at the front all night long. But you look in the latter half of the top 10, there's a lot of comeback stories. Jimmy Drynan had to make an unscheduled pit stop for damage, got 6th. Craig Forsyth, Josh Garner, and AJ Hobson were all involved in that big wreck over in turn 1. They're going to get top 10s. And Jeff Hysong was actually a lap down for, I think, about half of this race. He was one of those drivers that got pinned a lap down when the first caution came out, right in the middle of green flag pit stops, and he's going to bring it home in 9th place. So a lot of nice comeback stories here tonight at Homestead.
Well, another one has to be Josh Gardner here as well. I mean, he started in 22nd today, drove up 14 places, finished top 10.
How about a couple of these drivers outside of the top 10 still with good performances? I don't think we mentioned Joe McAdory or Kristen Nelson at all this evening. 12th and 13th place runs for both of them. Matt Wagner back there in the 99. It's almost kind of like the wind went out of the sails when he got involved in that incident with Eric Peterson back under the first yellow flag. It was almost like that 99 just didn't seem to have the speed we saw him have in the first 30 laps of the race.
See, that's the biggest issue. I mean, obviously, when that contact happened, it's almost like just something happened, at least to that car, where it just wasn't as quick.
Let's see if we can now get some post-race interviews with our top 3 finishers. I believe we are going to wait for a brief moment to get our third place finisher, Victor Santos, as I believe we're going to wait for his translator to come in here. So why don't we see if we can get the, coming into this race, defending winner of Homestead Miami and tonight's runner-up, the defending champion of the series, Nick Degroot. Hey Nick, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
And a lot of pressure coming into tonight. Defending winner of this race from season 2. Certainly looked like you were giving it a run for their money to be able to be a back-to-back winner here, but what little more do you think you needed to have to keep the 91 with you?
Rob was just doing an excellent job defending there. I had 2 thought processes. Either I could get to his outside, and that was my main thing. If I could do that, I think I was golden. And the other thing was take the runs to the inside, but kept pinching me down, and I had to lift or else I'd slide up into him. And my third option was, all right, I need to get a big enough run so I can just throw it in there and slide job. That was pretty much my only chance at that point, but then he started skipping away from me, and yeah, I went through it, and I did about everything I could do there. He outdrove me flat out.
I mean, you're mentioning all kind of the traffic you had to deal with. I mean, you and Van de Sant were pretty much side by side, or basically bumper to bumper the entire race.
Oh yeah, it was some pretty good racing there. At the beginning of the race, I was a little lost. I was also having some connection issues, but I wasn't quite sure about the draft because I hadn't run much in it. And there was some serious arrow push, and I fell back there. And I slowly started to figure it out, work that high side, and start marching forward. And we got helped by that first caution, too. Was able to jump a few spots. And Rob, actually, he got caught out by that yellow, so that was impressive that he was able to come back from that.
That yellow flag kind of coming out at inopportune time for some, opportune for others, and so it kind of put us at a bit of a question mark of what your guys' fuel window really looked like. Then when we had that second round of green flag pit stops, give us a little bit of a good idea. It was kind of looking like it was going to come down very close for you guys on fuel there, coming to the checkered flag. Just how close was it?
Oh, it was very close for me. After that, I think it was second to last restart. I was looking at it, and I know Alex pitted a lap after me, so I think he was good, but I was a lap short. I needed one more caution, so I'm very happy I got it there, but man, I'm getting sick of finishing second to this guy.
Well, Nick, obviously you guys are heading into the final road course stop of the season next week at Silverstone. How much experience and how much preparation have you put into that one?
To be honest, haven't run a lap yet, but we'll be running a lot of laps this week. Road courses definitely aren't my strong suit. I know that Alex and Rob definitely have a leg up on me there. And I'm normally around a 5th to 10th place. So my goal is to get up into the top 5. If I can get a top 5 run, I think that would be awesome. So that's what we're going to try to do. We've been pretty consistent on the road courses this year, so I'd like to keep that going.
All right, Nick. Well, congratulations on a solid outing here tonight. Your numbers at Homestead the past 2 seasons, awfully good. A first and a second place finish. Let's give you the opportunity now to do some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, thank you to my family I know is watching, Factory Back Motorsports, all these great sponsors. And how about Covey Moore, P5, double top 5 of this team. That's going to help us big time in the team championship fight. So looking forward to that next week.
Well, that's Nick Degroot. Second place here tonight at Homestead, Miami. Continues to keep himself up there in the top 3 in the point standings. Congrats on a great run there, Nick, and best of luck on the testing for next week at Silverstone.
Thank you.
Looks like we do indeed have our third place finisher ready here. Let's see if we can talk with Victor Santos. Hey, Victor, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah.
All right, we'll just stay on standby here real quickly here for Victor, and now I think we've got him. Victor, you got us?
Hello, everyone. I am here.
Well, Victor, a great run for you here tonight. 3rd place. One thing that I noticed was in practice, you never laid down a lap. Looks like you took to the track pretty well.
Dice que vio que en práctica prácticamente no hiciste ninguna vuelta de práctica y que te adaptaste bastante bien al circuito.
Bueno, sí, Miami es un gran circuito que no se me ha dado mal y bueno, pues con este coche la verdad es que es bastante divertido.
Miami is a good circuit for him, and he know it pretty well and didn't need more practice.
All right, so I've got to ask the kind of the hard hitting question here. I mean, obviously that incident with the 63 on lap 91. I mean, was that almost just kind of a miscalculation of sorts?
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
Oh, absolutely. With the incident with the 63 car on lap 91, was that just a miscalculation or just kind of a too late of a move?
Dice si el incidente este que estabas mirando ahora en la vuelta, si fue una miscalculation o fue...
Sí. Lo primero que pedirle disculpas a A.G. Hobson y al resto de personas que se vieron afectadas. Y respondiendo a su pregunta, que fue simplemente que intenté apurar lo máximo posible el rebufo y cuando cambié de trazada, cuando cambié de dirección, pues vi que su coche se había desplazado. Y fue un error por mi parte, pero bueno, me dio por 0, aunque no es excusa.
Basically, yeah, first of all, Santos apologies for the incident, not intentional at all. He tried to pick the, how I say, the aspiration to go fast, and he got pretty close and took out who was it? The 63 car.
Yes, of AJ Hobson.
Yeah, but his apologies.
Yeah, we know that obviously with the speeds that you guys were carrying tonight, the closing rate was huge. But still, a great performance for you here tonight. You bring it home with another podium finish. Seems like you're really good at the speedways. We're not going to give the opportunity here for some thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
Que has traído otro podio a casa, vamos a decir, que se te dan bastante bien los speedways y algunos agradecimientos.
Muchísimas gracias a todos y en especial, evidentemente, a mi streaming, que está siempre ahí apoyando, y a la mafia gallega también, a ti en especial, Marcos, también por la traducción.
He said that, yeah, thank you to all of you and the organization, and of course to the Twitch channel, to his Twitch channel, sorry.
That's Victor Santos. He's going to bring it home 3rd place here tonight. His 6th top 5 and his 8th top 10 on the season. Once again, congratulations, Victor, and best of luck next week at the road course of Silverstone.
Suerte y enhorabuena y suerte en Silverstone la próxima semana.
Thanks, Seth. Bye.
And let's now see if we can go down to victory lane and for the 9th time this season, talk with our race winner, Robert Maleska III. Hey, Robert, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Wow. I mean, we knew that you had a strong car from the first 30 laps of this race. But then that untimely yellow comes out there for the first caution of the day. You'd already been to pit road, so it lost you a ton of track position. And then we see you, I don't want to say slowly, but it definitely seemed like it was methodically working your way through the field back up to the front. I've got to ask you, because we saw in the early stages some drivers be able to actually use the second groove as a passing lane, but we saw you even go up all the way to the wall to make passes. So was it the track's ability for multi-groove racing, or just how strong your race car was that allowed you to pick up so many spots in so little time?
Yeah, so Homestead, I'm just very comfortable with running up high. It's probably my strongest track where I can run the top, just because I can really be patient on the throttle. So, but yeah, it was hard to pass. Had to be really patient, work guys 4, 5, 6 laps, and got up to 8th there. Had a really fire pit stop, and luckily the caution came out when I was P3.
So I need to know, just to kind of cure my headache here that I've got. How close were you on fuel? Because I was kind of working the calculator, it just didn't add up for me.
So without that caution, I think we all would have needed to save probably for half the run. But with the caution, when the caution came out, we were all good. But yeah, that last caution really helped us make it, and made us be able to go all out to the end.
One thing that I was wondering, we mentioned the fact that you kind of lost track position after the first round of green flag pit stops, the yellow coming out right in the middle of that. We saw that you guys actually did complete a cycle of green flag pit stops that second time round. Did you kind of have in the back of your mind, all right, I've already come down pit road early one time and the caution came out when I didn't need it to. I'm going to stretch this thing as far as I possibly can, avoid that situation this time.
Yeah, so with I got the wave around there, or lucky dog, and came in with one to go and just topped off because, like you said, I didn't want to get screwed over by a caution again. So I tried to go as long as possible. And luckily the caution came out once everyone cycled through, so I don't think really anyone got screwed up by the caution in the pits.
Well, as mentioned during the broadcast there, Robert, you continue to rack up these statistics. 9 pole positions, 9 trips to victory lane. It's the 5th time that you've gone coast to coast this season. And oh, by the way, we're going to a road course next week where you've been very strong at the road courses this season, but it's Silverstone. So how much experience have you had there? What's the confidence level going into a race like that one?
Yeah, the only experience I have is I think me and Wagner did a like an hour-and-a-half test session, I want to say, probably a month and a half ago. So I've done maybe 20 laps there, but the laps I did, I kept, every lap I got better and better, and felt relatively consistent, but we'll definitely need to put a few laps in throughout the week and just work on that consistency, excuse me. Just because I think that's going to be the key there with the pretty technical track.
It seems like whatever track we go to, you're always a threat to win, Robert. A very familiar face when we talk to you down there in Victory Lane. Congratulations on your win here tonight. We're going to give you the opportunity now for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, thanks you guys for announcing. Thanks to Henry Bennett for hopping on board and making setups. And hopefully we put on a good show. And I have to say to Kobe Moore, meow you.
Well, I have no idea what that means, but Robert Mileska III, he is your winner here tonight at Homestead, Miami in the HyperX 180. Congratulations, Robert, and we look forward to seeing what you're able to do next week at the left and right-hand turns of Silverstone.
Thanks, boys. Have a good one.
Meow you. Truer words have never been spoken. There is. I kind of want to follow up on that one. I want to put my journalism pants on and try and get to the bottom of this story for next week. We'll see if we can cover that next week. But nonetheless, a great race here tonight at Homestead, Miami. Here, Matt. I mean, if we kind of sum this thing up here tonight, it's what we expected. The pack racing, and subsequently the pack racing mistakes took place.
And that's the thing. I mean, just the speeds they were going, almost 213 in certain places. I mean, it just gave you no time to, if something happened in front of you, it just developed so quickly. And again, you sit so low in these cars. I mean, there's not that great of vantage point. There's not that great of vision. So if you're right behind someone, I mean, I'd say few of these guys had a heart attack just having this car come out of nowhere and just take them out.
So now with Robert Mileska III winning here tonight, 9th win of the season, I kind of said that tonight, maybe in a few weeks' time, Michigan would be those type of tracks where a driver could maybe see if they could topple Robert Mileska off of the podium and get a trip to victory lane. Because looking at Silverstone, he's been very good at the road courses, so you know he's going to be up at the front there. Pocono's kind of a mystery to me. I'm not really certain who's got the best numbers going into that racetrack. So, if you're a driver right now that either is looking to get back to victory lane for the second time this season, or is trying to go to victory for the first time this season, and your name is not Robert Mileska III, what is the track coming up here in the final 4 races that you are looking at specifically?
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I'm looking right now, and surprisingly, this may not be circled on many people's lists, but Pocono. Pocono has to be one of the races that I could realistically see myself at least trying to make a good run, trying to make a 8-race dive to see maybe I can find something that people are not looking at a fuel strategy. Maybe I can try some track position moves, and even that's just a fun track where, I mean, hey, as long as you've got 2 corners down, I mean, you're good to go.
Well, no positions changed up inside the top 6 in the standings. The number that did change is the interval of points between first to second. 196 points coming into this race. It is now 217 points between Robert Mileska III and Alexander Van de Sant. Obviously, for Robert Mileska III, able to be aggressive, but also kind of chill in these next 4 races. But we know as soon as the race car driver puts the helmet on, it is all systems go, and you want to be the first one to that checkered flag. So next week, Matt, Silverstone should be an interesting one for these drivers, because we just talked with the defending champion, Nick Degroot. Number of laps at Silverstone, 0.
The thing where you can see some of these road course guys, I mean, obviously, Mileska's definitely one of those guys that, hey, you're going to need a lot of practice, but obviously still the same fundamentals carry over, and it's still the same car, so they've got that advantage going for them. But I can see some guys who regularly struggle at some of these road course types tracks. I mean, unfortunately, two names that come to mind has to be Gail Brooks, and also, unfortunately, Covey Moore. I mean, I think he's going to break his top 5 streak there, but I mean, those are 2 guys right off the top of my head that I know are just not that great at road courses that, we'll see a lot of people struggle next week.
It is the final road course stop of the season for these drivers, as they will take 35 laps at the Silverstone Grand Prix next week. That green flag scheduled to fly at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Wednesday evening here in the Dark Horse IndyCar Series Season 3. But Matt, it's been a great one here tonight in southeastern United States at Homestead Miami Speedway. Congratulations to Robert Mileska III, and thank you, Matt, for joining me.
Oh, as always. Thanks for holding the door open for me.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. We will see you guys next week as we continue on the latter stretch of this season for the Dark Horse IndyCar Series presented by HyperX. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night. A champion is going to be crowned as the RTG Tally Challenge have their season finale. And then Friday night, we got a double feature for you. We're going to have the RTG Dirt Series followed up by a brand new series that we're going to be broadcasting, the RTG Amish Survivor Series. It's a Wreck 'em Up Survival Series. Man, that's going to be a lot of fun. Not sure how we're going to call that one, but it will certainly be a new experience. So a lot of fun stuff coming up here down the home stretch of this week. But for Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning into our broadcast here tonight of the Dark Horse IndyCar Series, and we will see you guys next time.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.